Leo Heremans, the name that still echoes through every pigeon loft and auction hall, was never just another Belgian fancier breeding a few birds behind his house, but the architect of one of the most shocking rises and even more shocking sales in the entire history of the racing pigeon sport. And to truly understand the scale of his story, you have to go back to Vorselar, a small village in Belgium where, together with his late partner Gust Jennis, and later with his close collaborator Marcel Ceusters, Leo began to shape a dynasty that would not just win races, but redefine modern pigeon breeding. His loft, humble in appearance, became a global factory of champions, with pigeons like the legendary Olympiade 003, Euro, Rossi, and Di Caprio turning into household names in the racing world, birds that were not only winning on the toughest Belgian and international races, but also transforming bloodlines across Europe, Asia, and beyond, creating sons and daughters that fetched record-breaking prices. And yet behind the glory, admiration, and the applause, there were whispers, unspoken stories, and even controversies that kept fanciers around the world hooked on what was unfolding. Olympiade 003, perhaps his most famous pigeon, a stunning cock that captured the title at the Olympiade in Liévin, France, became an icon of speed and consistency, his offspring producing winners generation after generation. And the sheer demand for his bloodline created a frenzy that no one could have predicted, while Euro, the unforgettable €36,000 pigeon, became the cornerstone of Leo's breeding loft, and later of countless other lofts when he was sold, his offspring winning provincial, national, and international prizes for buyers who could hardly believe the return on investment. And Rossi, the elegant cock named after the motorcycle legend Valentino Rossi, injected explosiveness and raw speed into every pairing he touched. While Di Caprio, another jewel, was admired for his stunning results and the quality of his descendants, a bird that cemented Leo's loft as not only a racing powerhouse, but a breeding mecca. But the world of pigeon racing is not just about glory. It's also about rumors, rivalries, and the occasional sting of betrayal. And many still talk about the shockwave of 2007 when Leo Heremans, together with Marcel Ceusters, decided to auction almost his entire collection of pigeons through PIPA, a move that would go down in history as one of the most lucrative and controversial sales ever, with buyers from China, Taiwan, the Middle East, and across Europe bidding astronomical amounts to secure a piece of the dynasty, the final total surpassing €4.3 million, a number that left jaws on the floor and headlines screaming that the sport had entered a new era of commercialization. Some hailing Leo as a genius who understood the market before anyone else, while others muttered in frustration that it signaled the death of the traditional fancier who lived only for the love of competition. But as pigeons left his loft one by one, in carefully packed baskets headed for airports and new continents, the question lingered in the air. Had the magic of Vorselar flown away forever? Or was Leo about to rewrite his own story yet again? Surprisingly, after selling nearly everything, Leo couldn't resist returning, rebuilding his loft with the same passion, starting almost from scratch, but once again climbing back to the top with pigeons that still carried the old bloodlines, intertwined with fresh ones, and once again producing champions that reminded everyone why his name would never fade. And through it all, Marcel Ceusters remained a key figure, his partnership with Leo a fascinating study in trust, strategy, and the occasional tension, with some fanciers whispering that Marcel was the business brain while Leo was the breeding artist, though neither ever publicly confirmed such speculation, leaving fans to interpret the dynamic however they wished. Even after the sale, Heremans pigeons became the backbone of countless lofts worldwide. Dirk van den Bolk's now legendary Kittel family, for example, traces heavily back to Heremans' blood, and Chinese buyers who once paid astronomical sums for Leo's pigeons proudly displayed their trophies in glossy magazines, pointing out that their lofts were built on Vorselar gold. While in Belgium itself, whispers continued about whether the prices had inflated the market too far, whether the Leo effect had changed the sport forever, and whether young fanciers could ever afford to compete again. Beyond the financial stories, however, what makes Leo's tale so magnetic are the more human elements: the sudden death of his wife, a tragedy that hit him hard, and, according to those close to him, was part of the reason he auctioned his birds in the first place, seeking both closure and a fresh start, a detail that many forget when they only look at the Euro signs and newspaper headlines, and the way he managed to rebuild his passion afterward speaks volumes about resilience and an undying love for the sport. Yet controversy never strayed far, with whispers about certain buyers feeling they overpaid, rumors about whether some pigeons were hyped more than they deserved, and stories of rivals quietly celebrating when Leo's post-sale loft initially struggled to find its footing again, though those same rivals were soon silenced when his new champions began to rise. Today, when you walk into an auction hall and hear names like New Olympiade, New Rossi, or New Euro, you immediately sense the lineage, the invisible threads tying back to Vorselar. And you realize that Heremans' pigeons are not just birds but symbols, carrying with them a legacy of both brilliance and controversy, adored by those who own them and envied by those who don't. And when people look back at the great eras of pigeon sport, the Janssens, the Van Loons, the Houben, the Van den Bulks, Leo Heremans and his partnership with Marcel Ceusters sit right there among them, etched in history not only for their victories, but for the seismic way they reshaped the global marketplace of pigeons. And yet, for all the millions, all the trophies, and all the whispers, when you see Leo himself, a man with kind eyes and the quiet smile of someone who knows the secrets of breeding, standing among his birds, you realize that behind the legend is still just a fancier who loves his pigeons, a man who, despite the controversies, despite the record-breaking sales, despite the scandals and speculations, never lost the thrill of hearing wings cut through the sky, never lost the childlike wonder of seeing his champions return from a hard race, and never stopped chasing that feeling that all fanciers know: the heartbeat that races as fast as the bird itself when it lands on the loft, proving once again that history, fortune, and fame aside, the real story of Leo Heremans and Heremans' Ceusters is the eternal bond between a man and his pigeons. A story that still has chapters left to be written, and perhaps, as some whisper in the dark corners of auction houses, the biggest surprises of all are still to come.